Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cindy, and I'm a 5th year MD PhD student. On my channel, I talk about my experiences in medical school, graduate school, research, academia, and of course, the application and admissions processes. This is actually the 4th video I'm filming today, the 5th if you count the one that got scrapped mid-filming, and my throat at this point is getting a little scratchy. That's why I have my tea. And I'm also running out of battery. I have one charging right now, but we'll see how long this one in the camera currently lasts. We'll see. Segue aside, today I want to talk about what it feels like now that a lot of my friends that I started medical school with have graduated. I don't know when this video is going to be posted, but at the time of filming, it is actually June, and graduation was a couple weeks ago, and a lot of my friends have actually started residency, which is crazy because I'm still here. I am still out here just doing my thing, you know? For those of you who are kind of unfamiliar with the path for MD PhD students, essentially you start medical school with medical students, obviously. You start together. And then after 2 years at my school, you end up breaking off and doing a PhD. And then in the end, you'll go back to medical school and do another 1.5 years. Some schools do it slightly differently, so they might do like 3 years of medical school first and then do the PhD, but mine does like the 2 and then the PhD and then the 1.5. Either way, no matter how you do it, MD PhD students usually end up getting left behind by the classmates that they initially start off with. I'll be honest, for a long time now, I have kind of been anticipating the emotional aspect of this process. Mainly because a lot of my close friends are not in the MD PhD program and are in the MD program instead. Also because I've just heard so much about it from other MD PhDs that are older than me who talk about how match day was just like a really big whirlwind of emotions, how graduation was really sad for them. When I posted about this on TikTok, actually, one of my mutuals told me, and she graduated now, but she told me that she couldn't stop crying on her classmates' match day and that it was like very emotional for her to be left behind by the classmates that she started medical school with. But I'll be honest, I actually didn't feel sad at all, and I think it's maybe 2 different reasons. One is that I have hyped this up in my head for so long, and I've had this like something like anticipatory grief where I'm just kind of like prepping myself for this moment for so long that when it finally happened, I didn't feel that sad. On the flip side of that, I feel like I also just trust my friends to continue to be my friends even after they've moved on. I now understand that everyone is on a different timeline, and I'm not so sad that I'm not on the same timeline as my friends. Going back to the point about how I am confident that my friends will still be my friends. It's not that if you're sad about it, you're not confident about that. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But what I'm trying to say is that one of the reasons why I thought I would be sad is because I think the friendship would be fundamentally different in some way once we're not all in New York together. And that is still true because when you're all together in one location, it is simply much easier to coordinate things together, hang out together, be more spontaneous, etc., etc. That's just how life goes. But honestly, I'm not so sad about the loss of that. And in fact, I kind of in my head feel like it's just the next stage in the friendship that we all have. I kind of feel like this is maybe the most proactive friendships I've ever had in my life. Like I've never really had friendships where I thought so deeply about how we're going to stay connected over time. And that brings me to the fact that I really feel like med school friendships are like forever because they're just things in medical school that kind of bond you. And in my particular situation, actually, my best friends in medical school were people in my anatomy group. And it's funny because I think out of my entire year, the anatomy group that kind of made it out as like best friends was my group. Obviously people got along, but no one like really hung out after the first year. And so I'm really honestly quite grateful that I was like randomly put into this group and had such a good experience, because usually you think of group projects and like randomly assigned groups and you think, oh my gosh, a nightmare. And actually after anatomy, our first semester, we would always go out for happy hour. And so we did one last happy hour together after graduation, and actually one of the girls in my group, who is still here because she ended up taking a research year, she gave us this little picture that I now keep at my desk to motivate myself that I will graduate. It's so I see the pictures of my friends and I feel motivated to work a little faster so I can get out of here too. And so, yeah, that's kind of my emotions surrounding all of these things and my friends graduating and me still being here. And the idea of feeling left behind, even though, of course, I don't really view it in that way. I don't really view as getting left behind. I just truly believe that everyone has slightly different timelines. I'm doing this PhD thing. I'm on a slightly different timeline, and I will get there eventually to being a doctor and all of that stuff. So I saw this post on Reddit the other day about isolation during the MD PhD program, and I have it pulled up right here. But it says that you spend 2 years in med school, then you get your PhD and you come back and then finish med school with a whole new cohort of med students. So this person is worried about feeling isolated in this sort of situation where you're essentially put in another group all over again. This is how most MD PhD programs are. Like, no matter what, you'll come back to a different cohort. Like, that's just how it is. I do think this is not something I have really worried that much about, partially because I knew this is just how programs go. And secondly, I kind of assumed, okay, like once I go back to med school, I will be at an age where this sort of stuff like doesn't really matter that much to me. Like my social group doesn't really matter to me. And I actually think that is somewhat true of MD PhD programs in general, is that you grow so much in those 8 years. You enter as one person and then you quite literally age in this program across 8 years. Obviously, you age physically, but also emotionally. And a lot of people end up prioritizing different things at the beginning versus the end of the program. Like, you might enter the program being single, and by the end, you have a family. I don't know. This is not the case for me, but it is the case for many people. And so by the time you go back to medical school, maybe you're married and you have a kid. And so who you're on rotation with literally does not matter. And I think even though that particular situation that I'm talking of right now isn't true for me, like I do not anticipate having a family by the time I go back to medical school. However, I will say, like, emotionally and mentally, the way that I've changed and grown as a person is such that I've become just more independent. And so this sort of situation where I might be in a different cohort when I go back to medical school really doesn't bother me as much. And going back to graduation, right, I also think this is probably why I've been doing pretty okay emotionally in terms of like being left behind and my friends graduating and all of things like that. Because at this point, I realize that I have the people who are close around me, and I might find more people who's close around me like in the next coming years. But all in all, like I've got people that I feel comfortable depending on. And also, just because my friends have graduated and moved on to residency does not mean they'll ignore me for the rest of their lives. I got a comment on my TikTok the other day because I was talking about this, and the comment said something along the lines of, oh, like I've always wondered what it was like for the MD PhDs to like still be here once everyone's like graduated. And here you go, like this is what it's like. I guess the feeling of sadness is not necessarily at the forefront. It's just that, you know, next semester is not going to look like previous semesters, but semesters hardly ever look the same. I'm very happy for my friends who graduated, but also I'm very focused on my work, focused on research, focused on my creative endeavors. If anything, it's giving me a little bit more motivation to get to the finish line faster now that I see my friends have graduated and moved on. So yeah, there you have it. That's going to be the video for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!